Regarding men, number 43, Paternity Fraud, Beware of Cupcake, with Carnell Smith.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Paul Elam with A Voice for Men. And as always, I am joined by the inimitable Janice Fiamengo, and she truly is an irreplaceable individual. I am with also Tom Golden from MenAreGood.com. And joining us today is Carnell Smith of Carnell Smith, C-A-R-N-E-L-L Smith.com. Link below to his website. Especially if you want to know anything about today's topic, which is paternity fraud. And Carnell is an expert on paternity fraud. As a matter of fact, way back in the day, for you old timers, he was one of the speakers at the first International Conference on Men's Issues in Detroit back in 2014. And his work on paternity fraud far predates that. We're going to get in.
I was going to say, he spoke in Washington, D.C. at the men's conference. What was it, 2005, Carnell?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're an old timer.
He's an old timer.
You can say that. Hey,
well,
I'm in the 50 plus club.
There you go.
Yeah, aren't we all? Carnell, why don't we start out with the basics?
All right.
And something basic that I would like to know is how you define paternity fraud, because it's not just a simple cut and dried subject, is it?
No. In fact, there is tremendous opposition to even using the term paternity fraud.
Wonder where that opposition comes from.
I will certainly highlight that. All right. but back when I found myself, unfortunately, in this situation, so paternity fraud is a situation involving where it's typically a mother who knowingly and willingly conceals material information about the existence of other father candidates from the person that she wants to be the father. And I'll go so far as to say she will go so far as to select paternity after conception. You're like, that ain't possible. But yes, it does. It happens.
Legally, it is.
Yes. And the opposition that I get, like, well, it was a mistake. No, it's not a mistake when you deliberately and knowingly conceal material facts. So let's put them together. A lawsuit to establish paternity while you are knowingly and willingly concealing material facts to get money. Fraud.
And who doesn't want us to use that very obvious term?
Yeah. Let's give them all of the ample credit they so willingly deserve. That would be the National Organization of Women. Some of my other opposition has been the gay and lesbians group, which initially I was scratching my head, going, well,
what?
How do you even have a stake in this discussion?
Yeah.
Like, okay, what? But guess what? Some of those people want to have kids, right? And they will make an agreement with a guy that's a friend of theirs, and then later they will change their mind about their agreement and sue this guy for child support. That's fraud on another level, okay? But specifically my issue is for the numerous men and teenage boys where we know there are over 300,000 of them are tested each year across North America, according to more than 44 accredited labs by American Association of Blood Banks. And 110,000 of them per year are tested and proven to not be the father of the child that they were accused of being.
More than a third?
Yep.
Wow.
That is worth dwelling over. 110,000 out of 300,000 tested.
Per year. So in 10 years, we got over 1 million guys and teen boys who now have gotten older, but we can't honestly tell you that 100% of them were able to get out of the trap. Now, why do I call it a trap? Once this guy finds out that he's been deceived, snookered, fugabooed, shanghaied, tricked, he wants to opt out, because many of these guys were like myself. When we went to family court, we were so marginalized out of the life of the child that we thought was ours. What are we fighting for? I mean, I went from unlimited parenting time to 3 or 4 days a week. Every time I went to court, I got less.
Huh.
And in the end, I ended up with the standard formula: once every week and once every other weekend and 2 weeks in the summer.
Mhm.
And then I found out after my pastor's father talked me into taking the test, he'd seen this little scandal take place in the Air Force.
Huh.
And that's how I end up helping a group form Veterans Against Paternity Fraud.
Hmm.
Military men across the nation are caught with this very same thing. And unfortunately, after finding out you're not the dad, it's not your kid, you can't see the kid when you thought you were the dad, and you just want out. For so many of the dads that are in this, it is a tremendously painful thing. And as I know, Tom, you're quite a prolific author on the topic of how men grieve.
Yeah.
But you know, people are not willing to allow men who have dealt with this pain and this deep sense of loss for a child they thought was theirs. They just want to tell us, well, you guys just suck it up and go away.
Keep paying.
But guess what? I can't do that. I actually had a client who committed suicide over this very issue after he married his high school sweetheart.
Oh.
He thought he had married the love of his life. And when his daughter turned 16, his wife decided she's going to use those no-fault divorce laws. And you know how effective those are in North America. That means he's about to lose the house, he's about to pay alimony, and he's about to pay child support.
Yeah.
Well, as it is for so many of us, somebody in that guy's life talked him into taking a paternity test. That's when he found out that the whole premise of the wedding is that he was going to be a father was a lie from the beginning, not when the test results came out. It was a lie in order to induce him into marrying her.
Right.
And after he helped us with getting the legislation, lobbying for that actually was passed in Oregon, he didn't take my advice. I pleaded with him, don't isolate yourself. Don't stay in the house by yourself. Man, go to your family. Stay with your family. Talk to them. Tell them about how you're feeling about this. Don't keep it in. Don't buy into the false notion of men never show hurt. Men never show pain. Never let them see you cry. I'm like, man, that's a formula for an implosion. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many, Carnell, do you have a ballpark figure or any kind of fundamental understanding? How many men are we talking about in, let's say, the United States who have been cuckolded, who have been or raising somebody else's child unknowingly? Do we have an estimate of how much is going on?
We do. And there's actually been quite a few people who've actually done some studies. Some of the geneticists, well, obviously the child support agency has zero interest in doing this study. Okay.
No shit.
And the enforcers, and as well as the National Organization of Women and a few other groups who have opposed me, and the family law section of the American Bar Association and the matrimonial attorneys, they do not like my solution, which, by the way, was not even my idea. Just do DNA testing at birth and ensure that the truth is on each kid's birth certificate within the first week.
Yes.
And then we would assure this child's the ability to get accurate family medical history, family lineage information, being able to identify them. And for some of the guys, if they knew right up front kid wasn't theirs and the relationship was on solid footing, he might be willing to take that on as stepdad. Okay.
Right.
But our opponents do not want to give him a choice.
Right.
But back to your original question, roughly 5 to 30% of the general population, depending on whose study, it is estimated 5 to 30% of the men are raising kids that they don't know are not theirs. And the reason
we're
you also
talking about tens of millions.
Yes. And the reason you'll hear me include teen boys is because the art of getting a guy to sign up for a legal obligation before he has a full understanding of what he's doing has been so beautifully crafted that all you got to do is, if you can get him to the hospital and get him to hold that baby and says, look, he's got your eyes. Look, looks like you. Now, you do want your baby to have a father, don't you?
Oh.
Hold on a second. You do want your baby to have a father, don't you? Now, in that moment, in front of the mother, in front of the mother's family, in front of his family, a lot of the guys do not have the courage to say,
Right.
and forgive me, all right, but hell no, I'm not signing a thing until I see proof that I did it.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
What is the status on that proof? That's another question that I had intended to ask you. Let's say I'm a young man, I'm 18 years old, and there's a question of whether or not I have impregnated my girlfriend or whether or
Right.
not she was impregnated by somebody else. The
Right.
baby born. What do I
Right.
do at that moment if I have reservations about paternity? What is it that I can do? And I guess it would depend on what state you're in too.
Well, he has the greatest power before he touches the pen. The greatest power is to simply say, I will be glad to support a child that you can prove is mine. That is not being condescending. That is not being disrespectful. But in the words of President Reagan, trust but verify.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that she's Cupcake. I'm not. I mean, she might be. She might have on a mask, who knows what's under the veil, But in that moment of time, he has the greatest power of a veto to say,
Yes.
I will not sign up for 21 years. And by the way, if that child is intellectually or physically handicapped, that's a lifetime that he's signing up for. Okay.
Right.
Now, my position is he should do so with full knowledge of all of the facts so that he can make an informed decision.
Yes.
I mean, look, I'm a rational guy. I'm just saying, who could possibly be against the truth? And by the way, the feminists do not like it when I couch it in that way.
I can imagine.
I've seen feminists have issues with the word truth.
Oh yeah, truth is a patriarchal construct, as we all know.
There you go. There you go. Because it's male privilege.
Yeah.
Yes, truth is an artifact of male privilege. Let's take a look at another scenario too, because again, it is to me hard to imagine the devastation that this kind of ongoing problem. I mean, you mentioned a man who killed himself.
Yes.
You got to wonder.
He was severely depressed.
How many other men have killed themselves, have taken a dive into alcoholism or drug abuse?
Well, let me hit on that.
Other kinds of problems.
Let me hit on that. I through the work that I've done, it attracts many people also in academia. And I've met a professor or two who is a paternity fraud victim. So, nobody's exempt. Unfortunately, many people will look at my ethnicity and say, well, this is kind of problem that only affects low-income minorities. I'm like, it's 2 strikes on that one. Number 1, I'm not low income.
All right.
Number 2, I am an American of African descent. But to think that the morality standard is high in every other area entirely based on ethnicity is a complete farce. And you'd have to be, if you can forgive me for saying, you have to be a complete idiot to believe that. All right. If you look at my YouTube channel, just by Googling CarnellSmith.com, what you're going to see men who are Hispanic. You're going to see men who are Anglo-Saxon, European descent. You're going to see African Americans. And guess what? And most of those guys were married men. I even got a guy on there who, brace yourself for this. This guy had a vasectomy, and his ex-wife went back to court and managed to get a child support order for $20,000 for an invisible kid that his ex-wife and his biological daughter faked a DNA test and they committed fraud on the court.
Yeah, really.
Guess how we caught them?
How?
talked the news crew into following her because our guy, he finally said, well, look, Your Honor, if you think I had a kid with her, because people who understand after you get a vasectomy, you need to have a sperm viability study done shortly after, like each year, to make sure there are no swimmers in the pond, right? Well, our guy had that.
Huh.
And here's what he requested of the court. He said, Your Honor, if I had a kid with her after I've had a confirmed successful vasectomy procedure, make her bring that kid to this courtroom and show her to you.
Mm-hmm.
They caught his ex-wife on camera trying to kidnap a little girl from a grandmother who she had tricked into coming to court, telling the lady she would pay her $50 and give her granddaughter some candy.
Wow.
They caught it all on camera.
Ooh.
Well,
Needless to
Love to
say.
see.
that turned out in that man's favor.
Oh, yes, it did. And he sued. I do believe he sued somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million because he was able to go after multiple parties involved.
Right.
I mean, this woman had faked a baptism record, faked a birth certificate. Now, in this day and age of we worried about terrorism and identity theft and all these things, that reveals some severe holes in the framework of the identity management systems, right?
Right.
No kidding.
Now, look, we're talking about paternity fraud, but look, this thing has tentacles that touch into a whole lot of areas.
Yeah.
One of those areas, Carnell, is what happens to married men whose wives have affairs, conceive a child with another man. And as I've seen over and over again in places like Texas and other states, the judge says, I don't give a damn. If you were married to her, it's your child, pay up.
Which is entirely relevant to talk about how that is one of the 4 ways that men can become a paternity fraud victim. What you're talking about is the marital presumption of paternity. So using, excuse me a second, the Old English common law, where unless the husband was away on the high seas and had no access to the mother during the window of conception, you see my hands, window. If he was away on the high seas and she got pregnant, he had an alibi. Couldn't have gotten to her, wasn't there, had no access, right? Well, by the same token, now that we have genetic testing, and like on my YouTube channel with me on the CBS Early Show, you see this Texas gentleman named Morgan Wise. 3 out of 4 of his kids tested were not his. But it was not, look, it wasn't the testing that by DNA that made him start looking. It was when the youngest little boy was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. And that is one of those diseases that could only be produced in the child by the mother being a carrier and the biological father being a carrier. So Morgan is getting tested so they can devise a treatment plan for the boy. Well, his MD says, Morgan, you don't have the trait at all.
Wow.
And in fact, if I were you, I'd test all of those kids. Well, guess what? Only the oldest daughter is his.
Wow.
All 3 of the boys are not his, and some of the boys got different daddies. So now tell me, as we shine the spotlight on Cupcake, what did Morgan do wrong? Man was working, had a job, he had a vocation as a locomotive engineer, so he has a traveling occupation. So guess that leaves Cupcake with some free time.
Yeah.
You following what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Free time and extracurricular activities. But Paul, Janice, Tom, when confronted on camera asking Cupcake, well, why don't you go after their fathers for support and stop going after Morgan for $2,000 a month? She said, well, I don't want to mess up their families. They're married. So you guys tell me, how are we, as in the men and boys who go through this snookerism, how are we the villains?
Yeah.
Indeed.
Wow.
Indeed. That's why now doesn't like it, is because it's so obvious they are the villains.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's
And,
so easy. It's so easy to cast that net and just say, I know, Tom, I love your saying I heard years ago, men are good.
Yes, they are.
But in the eyes of this, this deadbeat euphoria, whatever they want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
I find that there are so many dads out there that want to see their kids. They're saying, but I want to see them. I don't want to just pay.
Right.
I want to have a relationship with them.
That's it. That's it.
But I can tell you why after about 3 years or so in court battles, after those dads have been bankrupted, a lot of them give up. And it isn't because he lost love for his kid. You know, Tom, about the grieving process. It becomes so painful that where I'm paying my attorney $200 an hour and I make $40 an hour, I cannot sustain that indefinitely.
Not too long.
Yeah.
No. And you know what I was thinking of, Carnell, when you were talking was the absolute chaos. This mentality, this woman said, well, I didn't want to disrupt the other families, which of course is bullshit. What she wanted was a nice, convenient avenue to get her money through one guy who was making it. And it's so messy dealing with the rest of these guys to get justice done. But I can't even begin to imagine the damage this does to the children in that family, to their relationships with each other, their relationships with their mom and with their dad, and how they see themselves.
Well, guess what? The kids asked him to take the test. The kids, look, you think about it for a second. In the community, if Cupcake is a creeper with other other wives' husbands, somebody's seen it, and rumors float. And it's not a question of if the truth is going to come out. It is always a question of when. All right. So the kids asked Morgan, look, tell us the truth. Well, so Morgan, after that medical test, he DNA tests all 4 of them. And he says, well, look, I'm your dad, but I'm just not your biological father.
Well said.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then when he went to court saying, well, look, we need to assign the financial responsibility to the guys who had all the fun. Them and Cupcake had the distinct pleasure of producing a child 3 times. Let's help them be responsible.
Yes.
Well, the judge in his great wisdom there in Texas says, not only are you going to still have to pay, he stripped them of visitation rights of all of the kids because he told them the truth.
Wow.
Now, how do you think Morgan felt?
Wow.
And we men are villains.
Of course.
Horse feathers.
Yeah.
The judge didn't want to disrupt family.
I mean, I would count that judge among them.
Yes.
Well, they're not all like that. They're not all
of course not. Of course not. God, what a messy, messy problem.
But it's a preventable problem if we just did the DNA. Look, I ended up doing business with the lab that did my first test for about 10 plus years. So I know how to market the services, and I've actually been contracted to go and provide the DNA testing on the day the baby was born, because a client has either seen something or read something or heard me on radio, seen some of my media stuff, and he says, what happened to Morgan Wise, what happened to Dennis Karen, what happened to Carnell Smith, and all of those other people, including one gentleman we met over in Australia, in Sydney. I don't want that to happen to me. And it is important that I make an informed decision about this relationship right now, early as possible. So I've had 2 clients, one who was married, got the DNA testing immediately on the day of birth. And shortly after we get the samples and I get back to my office, the wife calls me and says, listen, I belong to a religion where if these results don't come out and say they're my husband's, I could possibly be in danger. I will pay you $10,000 to change the results to ensure that my husband is the father. I said, lady, you're crazy. Because for you, it's one test. For me, it's a reputation that I built based on truth, honesty, and integrity. You couldn't pay me $1 million to do that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what the results came back as, don't you?
Sure.
I guess.
0.0% paternity. That newborn that she had was not her husband's baby.
Right.
Yeah.
And tell me again now, this is men's fault. And how dare those scoundrels get a test?
Mm-hmm.
And the worst thing I've heard in all of the years I've been doing this now, going on close to 20, is a judge actually said that a DNA test is an unfair weapon against women.
Oh, man.
That's
No.
using the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like here I am, Carnell Smith, truthologist, who uses
shit.
DNA to help people solve mysteries and questions about family identity and family relationships. Because the question is, who's related to you?
Yeah.
You cannot take a verbal representation. Look, you cannot take Cupcake's word for anything. She's got her fingers crossed behind her back saying,
Yep.
I'm telling the truth. Yes, I am. I swear. Don't look
With
behind my back.
$10,000 to back it up.
And don't look behind my back.
That's it.
It's
Carnell, I
amazing.
remember you mentioned back in 14 when you were talking about the laws in France. And
Yes, that's
they
horrible.
were really stacked against the man that if a guy got a DNA test without mother's permission, he could be criminally charged for that.
Yes.
What about the United States? What are the conditions?
Fortunately, United States hasn't adopted that one. We've been diligent in keeping an eye on that, even in the attempt to do that. Okay, but what does that say? We're going to ask the gatekeeper, the person who knows of the existence of more than one paternity candidate. Now, look, the husband usually doesn't know. The boyfriend doesn't know. The fiance doesn't know. Maybe we could go so far as say, okay, the guy who was a one-night stand, he should not expect her to tell the truth. Okay. But unfortunately, in these stories that you see many of those people we've been able to get to go public with it, they were in what they thought was a monogamous relationship.
Right.
Well, silly him for thinking that. Did you not know she had her fingers crossed behind her back? Truth is not fully applicable as long as her fingers are crossed.
Yeah. Crazy
and
stuff.
No offense, Janice. I am not coming down on women because guess what? I have women who, when they were separated from their husbands, they actually got pregnant with their boyfriend and they did not want to put their husband's name down. But the state of California, in their great wisdom, says, nope. The marital presumption says any children born while you're married to your husband are automatically your husband's kids.
What?
Wow.
And the state of California fought this lady over putting her boyfriend's name down as the father because as long as she was still married, they said, nope. And now think about that. How can you be so obstinate and just in one court, you can completely disregard the truth. But on the flip side of it, once you get charged with being behind in child support more than $2,501 in the U.S. territories, is that you can be charged with a third-degree felony. You can actually go to prison for this.
Damn.
Now, the DNA test can help you as an affirmative defense for the criminal charge, but then you get sent back to the family court and they said, nope, he didn't figure it out in time. Your Honor, there was a 2-year time limit. Or in the case of single men and single boys, if they don't find it out after 61 days when they sign that document, it takes a court order to get his name off of that document. And you know what the court's going to say, what they've said again and again, it's your fault you didn't find out sooner. Yeah. I actually had a judge tell me that.
Damn. What's it cost for a DNA test these days, Carnell?
Well, there are two types. So there is the home DNA test, and you can actually get that done in the neighborhood of less than $200, but you have to be very cautious about how you do that, because one fatal mistake that people make when they use the home DNA test, they forget that test is not legally admissible in court. Ooh. Because there is no proof of identity of whose samples are taken.
Right.
There's no tracking and recording by a
Right.
neutral third party doing the collections. Okay. And so you get back a result that says sample A and sample B are 99.99% related, or 0% they're not. You'll know, but you can't use it for evidence. So with that understanding, I've always advised clients, listen, the legal test is more expensive. Yes, you can obtain a legal DNA test for as low as $395 in some areas. And if you want one-day results, you can get it for right around $1,100, okay?
Huh.
It all depends on what your situation is, okay? Like one client that I had, he was paying $1 million a month in child support. And DNA testing revealed that the 5-year-old, and you heard me right, I said $1 million per month. And he was just as pissed off about it. He was just as hurt when he got the results that the 5-year-old was not his. But then after he had a moment to think about it, he's like, wait a minute, there's no way my wife didn't know that she was involved with somebody else.
Right.
And guess what? The biological father makes considerably less money than the billionaire does.
Yeah, when you cheat with the pool boy, but you're married to a doctor.
Uh-huh. And did you guys see me on Dr. Phil? That doctor that was on Dr. Phil, that was one of my clients with me.
Is that right?
Yep. But guess what? The biological father in that case was a high school counselor at the school where the wife was teaching.
Huh.
My client was a teaching doctor. He's on staff at 2 hospitals. Now let's just run the numbers. Who makes more money?
The doctor.
And guess what? And Dr. Phil asked her on air, do you think a man should have to pay child support for a kid that's not his when it was the woman's fault? And she said, yes, indignantly.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh God! Look, everyone,
Shit.
Yeah.
that's crazy.
I want to just sort of hammer in that point because I think there's something important in what you're saying there for guys to understand that chain of custody and testing is everything.
Yes, because there's proof. Look, I photographed, fingerprinted. You had to bring in ID. And you tell me you can't fingerprint a baby. That's a lie. Have you not seen heel prints on newborns? You can fingerprint a baby, okay?
Yeah.
Because it's important that there be proof of whose samples get sent in. So verifying the identity of whose it is, taking that in, and we already know in advance that if these results come back negative, there is going to be a challenge to the results. But that's okay. We're fine with that. The lab that I use provides the services for most of the television shows, include Moiret. They have no incentive to lie, no incentive to cheat. It's a business for them. Integrity matters. Look, and as I dare say, truth matters.
There you go. Indeed, it does. So if men out there are having troubles, Carnell, or wondering about stuff, they can get in touch with you via the website and you could consult with them. Is that what happens?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, and we do this nationwide. So people think that it's hard, it's impossible, but you're talking to a guy who took this to the United States Supreme Court with proof that there were over 1 million men and teenage boys like me, got the Supreme Court to have 2 meetings over it. And then they demanded that I bring them a copy of the Georgia legislation that I had lobbied for and actually co-wrote. And after they saw that, they sent me a 1-page letter. Petition denied. Now, according to most knowledge and most expectations, you would think if you lose at the U.S. Supreme Court, there is no way you can win. Even I forgot something that I wrote into that law. And I end up using the law that I was lobbying for other people. I was the first guy to win using the law.
All right. We like that.
A little bit of poetic justice.
Poetic justice. But winning is good.
What people can do, though, in connecting with me at carnellsmith.com is completing our intake application. And the link to that is very simple. It's application.carnellsmith.com.
We'll provide that
application.
below.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the
Okay.
in the low bar
Cool beans.
so
cool
people can
beans.
find you.
But
Because you
look,
need to find Carnell.
yeah, look, if you're married, and God knows for the military men who are about to make this fatal
Man.
mistake, and it goes with, look, the Dear John letter is bad enough where, okay, well, since you're not here, I'm going to go with guy number so-and-so. This other one that is just as bad is, well, look, I'm pregnant and we need to get married. That is a formula for disaster.
Yes,
Because,
it is.
look, first, you heard my premise of trust but verify. First, verify that you did cause that pregnancy. And if you were in love with her and you were going to marry her, there is no harm in delaying the ceremony until you have results in your hand. You see my
Yes.
fingers?
Yes.
Now, if these results come back and say this, you're going to be a very grateful person. Your feelings will be hurt, but you won't go through a $300,000 loss in legal fees and attorney's fees and child support and
Yes.
stuff that I would have never paid. And then had been stripped of all access to the child because mom said, if you will agree to pay me anyway and pay for supervised visitation, you can still see the child. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
No, but look, my family love her. I love her. Let us still see her and we'll do things for her directly. But put money in your hands, that'll be a big no.
It appears
no.
that we need to ritualize. I mean, we have a big thing going these days about gender reveals in children.
Yes.
Paternity reveals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There you go. I like
Hey,
that.
Moiret Povic is a master at that one.
Yeah, he is.
You are not the father. You are the father.
He's made a living off of that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you sell the audience what your audience wants to see. And I don't begrudge the man at all, because I think he helped that industry, which was really sort of maybe had a slow start. The thing hit mainstream, so much so that there are some organizations and groups now saying, well, look, why should we have to go and test multiple people drawn out over years? Why don't we collapse this thing to the first hearing? And okay, Cupcake, all right, in the window of conception, all of the paternity candidates you were involved in this window, list them, because we will test them all and we will get a definitive answer.
Yeah.
And you know what the feminist said? Oh, no, you can't do that. That would not be fair. That would be exposing her personal business. Like, no, it wouldn't be. It'd be in the courtroom there with the judge.
Yep.
Yeah. And what about the rights of the child that feminist organizations are always talking about and pretending that they care about? How can we have tens of millions of people, children first, growing up not knowing their parentage, the health implications of that for the well-being of those people are obvious to anyone, and yet somehow they can
wait, Janice, you're using sound logic here. That disqualifies you.
That's out.
Look, what did Cupcake say? Don't confuse me with the facts. Look, I want what I want.
Yeah.
Whether it's right or not, that's what I want.
Look, I can laugh about this now, but it was a very painful,
very tough
day.
Well,
I got those results. But then when I found out there were people in worse shape than me, like truck drivers who had been injured in accidents, and they can't even get their licenses back once they go through rehab to be able to go back to work. And then they find out the kids that they have been laboring to support are not theirs at all. And the child support sympathetic answer is, well, look, buddy, we'll give your license back when you bring us the whole thing.
God.
And the fact that the kids are not yours, that's not what we're here to talk about. Look, we have arrears here, buddy. And that bill is $23,000. Look, where's our money?
Just awful. Terrible.
Well, they need their percentage.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. And they associate fees with those collections and they charge interest.
Yep.
But again, the men and boys who won't agree to being snookered and fugabooed and all of my other choice of words, because they don't want to go along with it when they're like, wait a minute, I just want out. Some of these guys don't even want their money back. They're like, look, just take your foot off my neck and leave me alone and let me go on with my life and let me have kids with somebody who actually loves me, who actually wants to be in my corner with me, so that when I pick them up and I look and I see, yes, you have my eyes because we are related.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good point to stop, I think.
It's a horrible, horrible problem. Yeah, I mean,
and Carnell has been working on this for years. And Carnell, you're right. Men are good, and so is Carnell.
Yes, he is. Matter of fact,
thank you.
We want to
humanitarian.
I was just going to say that. You beat me to it. We give out a humanitarian award with each show, and Carnell definitely gets it. He's been working at this for a long time. Yeah, he's a good man.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the good work you're doing. And we also give out a PUDA, Carnell.
PUDA?
A PUDA, a flying PUDA. And you'll see her fly in here in just a second. But who are we giving it to, guys?
I'd say it goes to Cupcake.
All the cupcakes out there. Yeah.
Cupcake gets it. She's going to come in and just, oh, there she goes. There she goes. Oh,
and can I thank Janice too? Because Janice, you are not alone with that rational thought that yes, women are capable of being truthful, and they're capable of being where they look at the best interest of their child, so that they want all of the facts for their kids, medical history and heritage, etc. You are not alone. It is 90% women who contact me, and that when I go before legislatures and I'm saying to that woman, look, you want to do something with your voice, here's the opportunity. And due to their innate ability and years of being able to network and to empathize, they are able to bring in that guy who has always thought there's nothing can ever be done. She can reach him before I can. So my outreach is hopefully to inspire hope in people and to motivate them to take action. As bad as it looks, doesn't mean that it's hopeless. You get me?
There you go.
Good for you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah. A good note to end on.
Be proactive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Call Carnell.
Do not sit and wait for the system.
Really? It'll eat you alive.
Because the system does not deliver justice. The system is there to meet its own needs, and it's going to be at your expense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got a question? Go to carnellsmith.com and get
Indeed.
started on that questionnaire.
Yeah.
All right.
Indeed.
Pleasure.
Carnell,
thank you.
Thank you very much, man. It's so good to see you. I was thinking, we go back a long time, 2004, I think. So
absolutely, all the way back to DC.
It's always good to see you. All right. You all take care then.
All right.
Okay.
Cheers.
All right.
Cheers.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.